Hey guys, what's up? It's Chris here from Ambrosia Buds, and so check it out. The reason I'm making these videos, this playlist called Ready Set Grow, is because I get a lot of people that ask me to hook them up and try to get them to start growing cannabis from home, and I'm all about spreading the knowledge and helping people out. But the problem is a lot of these people that ask me to like set tents up like this or help them with an outdoor grow, they literally just think they're going to put a seed in dirt and give it some water and it's going to grow. They know nothing about light. They know nothing about light spectrums. They know nothing about fertilization patterns. They don't know anything. And when everybody always asks me how I learned what I did, I told them, I was like, I read a book. And the problem is nowadays people won't even read a book. They're just not making any effort to actually gain the knowledge they need to know. And so what happens is I get a whole bunch of text messages, pictures, and phone calls of like, what's wrong with my plant? What's wrong with this? Can you come over? Help me, help me, help me. And dude, it's just time consuming. Like, I have enough to deal with my plants, so I decided the easiest way to fix that problem was to start making videos that just go over the fundamental basics of starting to grow cannabis, and then they, can watch these videos and go from there. So that brings us to Ready, Set, Grow. So in this video, guys, we're going to talk about lights. So lights are probably the first big investment that a new home grower is going to purchase when it comes to growing cannabis. So I'm going to break this down into a couple of different pieces. What I'm going to do is I'm going to talk a little bit about HPS, which is high pressure sodium, and MH, which is metal halide lights. Those were the older style lights that I started growing with, and the reason I'm not going to talk a lot about them, but I am going to explain those because it's going to give you something to compare the other lights to, like the LEDs, like the one behind me, and that way you can get the pros and cons. So, and then I'm going to get into LEDs, and then for all of you that really want to go down the rabbit hole, at the very end of the video, I'll talk a little bit about the spectrum tuning lights, which is like the new trend, or it's what I'm doing now. It's the new future of growing, if you ask me. So let's get a little bit about the history of lights. So before LEDs, you had two different style of lights. You had a metal halide, which covered a blue spectrum. Okay, so in the vegetative growth of when cannabis is in the vegetative state of growth, which means it's not producing buds, it's just growing tall and leaves and branches and stuff like that. It requires, or not that it requires, but it desires a higher spectrum of blue light. Okay, light's all colors, guys. So in the vegetative state, cannabis wants a blue light. The metal halide light covered that. Now, when you take a cannabis plant and you put it into flowering, cannabis requires a higher spectrum of red light in the flowering period. And if you guys didn't watch the last video when I went over light cycles, the 1812 light cycles, go check that out, and that'll give you the idea of what vegetative and flowering is. But back in the day, you would have to use a metal halide, and they were remote control balances. Okay, there is a plus to these lights, and people still use them today. They're called remote control balances, which means their power source is separate, and then the bulb sits in a hood. But there's some cons. There's a lot of cons to it compared to LEDs now. All right, so the biggest thing with metal halide on high pressure sodium lights that have remote control balances is they run hot and they're not energy efficient. They're more energy efficient than they used to be, but they're not energy efficient as LEDs like this light right here. And I'll get into this light, and I have another light to show you right here that you don't see on the screen yet, but I'm going to hold it up for you. But so they run hot. They used to run loud, but they've gone digital. They've gone from a magnetic ballast to e-ballast, so a little more quiet. But the biggest thing is the bulbs don't last that long. So when I was running high pressure sodium lights for flowering, it recommends you change the bulbs every 12 months. I was changing them every 6 to 8 months. Back then, and this was over a decade ago, actually 20 years ago, those bulbs were running $120 a piece. So, when you look at the yes, you're going to save money overall cost because you probably can get a high pressure sodium 400 watt interchangeable dimmable light, which is like really good, for about $400 right now. And I would suggest anybody, if it's a dimmable light, start with 1,000 watts because that's what you're going to end up with. And I'll explain that in a minute when I show you this light. So $400 compared to a base spotlight. And guys, let me mention something too. All the lights I talk about right now, I'm not affiliated with the company. I'm not getting paid to promote them or anything like that. These are the lights I use, hence you can see my tent right here. So, and I will tell you the different manufacturers that I would also suggest if you're just getting into growing, and I'll leave some links in the description below. So if you want to take a look at prices and different models and stuff like that and go shopping, go for, feel free to do it. But so like 1,000, I would start with 1,000 watts because that's pretty much the highest you're gonna get. And if it's dimmable, if you're not using 1,000 watts, just tone it down, right? So that's high pressure sodium and metal halide. Now let's get into LEDs. Okay, LEDs, when they first came out, I was skeptical about it, and when I got back into growing because I took a pause, the LEDs have really evolved, guys. So these LEDs here are Spider Farmer LEDs. This is a bar light, hence the different bars. Okay, and most of your LEDs are all, well, actually I think all of them are all full spectrum lights, which means they can cover the full blue spectrum and the full red spectrum. Okay, this is a one channel light. I'll explain that at the end when I get into spectrum tuning. Okay, there's different styles. Well, let's talk about manufacturers. For one, this is a Spider Farmer tent. You can get these, you can get a whole starter kit, light, tent, exhaust fan, and CO2. Like from Spider Farmer, they're great deals. Comes with the hooks, the hangers, everything you need to get started. It's it's like one package buy. The link will be in the description if you're interested in something like that. There's different size tents. I'll do a whole nother video on tents. Well, let's talk about LEDs. So LEDs are way more efficient, guys. For one, way more efficient. This light is dimmable as well. See, so this is all the way up, but if I don't want to use all that power, if I'm just starting like seedlings or something, or I'm burning up the plants, I just dim it down. So that's kind of why I say just go with 1,000 watt, because in order to max your plant's yields, meaning to get the biggest harvest or the most weight you can from your plant, you're going to need more light intensity. I started with a 400 watt, and I'll have to admit going from a 400 watt to 1,000 watt was a learning curve, because what happens is it's like driving a race car, and your floor, like 1,000 watts putting the pedal to the metal, where a 400 watt you're only like half throttle in it. So you're taking in more nutrients and stuff like that, and you'll see the plants grow faster as well. But so LEDs, but the biggest thing about these LEDs are you don't have to change the bulbs, and the lifespan of the bulbs is like phenomenal. I've been running this light probably 2 years. The light I'm about to show you, I've been running 4 years. In my main room, I actually started out with 4, then went to 6 Spider Farmer panel lights, and I'm going to show you one right now. This is the light that I would recommend for anybody just to start out. It's going to run you about $650. You might find a deal through Amazon, but like I said, all those links will be down there. And you don't have to get this light. I mean, it's all up to you, and it's all to your budget. But so this is a panel light. Bam. Hence, all the bulbs on a panel compared to all the bulbs on a bar. I prefer the bar lights. The bar lights cost a little bit more. Let me explain why I prefer the bar lights. So let's take a 1,000 watt light. You have a primary and a secondary light stamp, pretty much. So the primary light for a panel light for 1,000 watt would roughly be, depending on the light, is 4x4. So that means you're getting primo light in a 4x4 space. The secondary is 5x5, which means on the edges it's kind of dwindling off. The bar lights have a better coverage on the edges. You're getting more penetration. You're getting better penetration and more light coverage from a bar light. These things actually run a little bit cooler. What's really nice about the bar lights too is you can pop one bar out. So if like one bar is giving you problems, instead of like replacing the whole light, you can just get a replacement bar. You can change bars because they make bars for different spectrums. Prime example is you can get UV bars and put in here. And I will talk about UV lights. I have one behind me right here. And that's a whole nother ball game, but I will explain it to you in a second. But what's really nice about the LEDs are it's a feature called daisy chaining. Okay, so daisy chaining means I can take, I'm going to use this light for an example. So I can take this light, and let's say I had 10 more of these lights. I can connect them right here on the controller via a telephone jack. I can connect all those lights together, and I can make this light my main light. And what happens is if I turn this light on, it turns all the lights on. If I turn this light off, it turns all the lights off. If I dim it, all the lights mimic what's happening with this light. And that's really nice if you have a big grow where you're running multiple lights. I mean, in a tent setup, you're only running one light. And what's really nice with most of these manufacturers, such as AC Infinity, Spider Farmer, Vivio Sun, are like the top 3 that I would name. Like, you can see this light fits the tent perfectly, so you're getting full coverage. And in this tent right here, I'm planning. I just filled the bottom of it with the pots that I'm going to use. I probably could fit 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I could probably fit 12 medium plants in here, but I'm putting 6 plants that I'm going to make a little bit bigger. So that's just to give you an idea. So let's talk a little about UV lights real quick. This is a UV light from California Sunworks. Okay, it's just a fluorescent light. These lights are about $120 a pop, and there's 3 different UV styles of UV rays. It's UVA, UVB, UVC. So let's talk about UV. Because UV rays are pretty much what give you cancer. It's what gives you a sunburn, but that's a UVB light. And what I do is I run 2 UVB lights in my main room the last 2 weeks of flowering for 15 minutes a pop at the last 15 minutes of the light cycle. What this causes, and I've tested this out too, and you can get UV bars too, so you can run, like, you could pop out a bar and put UVB if you wanted to use it. But what it does is, in that when your plant starts budding and it's in the flowering, when your cannabis is in the flowering period, it starts producing trichomes and crystals, right? That's when it gets all frosty. Well, when the UV light hits it, it kind of sunburns the plant, and for the defense mechanisms of the plant, it increases the trichome factor in order to cover the plant, to protect the plant. So you're increasing flavor, stickiness, and the crystals, and it does work. Now, you got to watch out with the UV lights, guys, because if you're running UV in your room, you do not want to be in the room while they're on, especially if you don't have protective eyewear. These glasses are specifically made just to go in the room when the UV's in there. You usually don't want to be in that room, if you have to go in there, more than 5 or 10 minutes. That's how dangerous these lights are. Okay? So with that said, let's talk a little bit about where lights have gone now, from high pressure sodium metal halide to LED full spectrum to spectrum tuning. So the main light in my room, and I'm going to leave, at the end of this video, I'll leave the promo for the light that I use. It's a GML Grandmaster level Borg Evolution 4-channel spectrum tuning light. Now, what does that mean? I know that's a whole bunch of terminology to somebody that might be new. I'm not going to get a lot detail of this, but this is a 1-channel light, which means when I turn this light on and I dim it or I raise it up, all the spectrums go to the same level at the same time. My light is 4 channels, which means I have 4 independent channels, and I can control each spectrum of light on those channels. So if I want to keep my red level here and increase my blue level spectrum of light, I can do that. And they're soft, in the soft and warm red and blues. So I basically can make a recipe of light for my plant that wouldn't naturally exist in nature, which is really cool. And what that does is you can literally change the way the plant grows. Like, you can stretch plants out to make them taller. You can shorten plants. It's really fun. It's a new science. It's not cheap. My setup and the light that I'll leave a link to at the end of this video with the controller. Hold on. So this is the manual for my controller. It's the Grandmaster controller, which allows me to preset. This thing is really nice, digital touch screen. I can control this is a computer for my light, and I can control everything that I want with this controller. But that setup's $1,500 pre-tariffs. I literally bought that light. The owner of the company called me, and because it was from Canada, and told me, like, it was right when the tariffs were about to kick in, and told me if I wanted to order the light, I needed to do it now, because if not, the tariffs are going to kick in. So I ordered it. I'm looking to get a second one. I have to run a second outlet to it. But that's about it, guys. So if you want the full specs of these lights, like what they're putting out, 120, like the voltage and all that, check out the description below. When you hit those links, it's going to take you to Amazon shop. Yes, I'll get a kickback if you do order from that. It's not much though, but it'll show you the full specs of the lights. But as far as that, guys, if you're new and depending on your budget, now you don't have to get the 1,000-watt lights. And Spider Farmer, once you start going through those links, you can shop around. They make cheap bar lights. I mean, you don't have to, like this tent, I have that panel light that I just showed you, I have in this tent, and I specifically just use this tent for seedlings and clonings, like small plants. That's why this tent is a little bit shorter. This is, and I also use, this tent for proper, like pollination, if I'm trying to crossbreed plants. So, I'll get into tents a whole nother chapter or a whole nother video. But that's it for now. So if you like what you're hearing and you want to learn more about growing cannabis at home, do yourself a favor, like this video, ring the notification bell so you get updated for all the new videos that I make, and subscribe. I need some subscribers, guys. I'm trying to grow the knowledge of growing homegrown cannabis. All right, that's it from Ambrosia Buds, guys. Peace, love, stay green, and keep growing.